So today we're going to talk about Avengers Endgame. We're going to talk about Thanos, whether he was a villain, and whether Thanos was right. What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing? Welcome back to Endure, Believe, Rise. I hope this message reaches you in good energy. I hope you and your loved ones are in good health. So, this was a question that was proposed to me, and the person that gave me the question, I was going to do a video on it, but then I wanted to have a conversation with that person. So I'm going to give you some of the snippets and a bit of a summary of the conversation that me and that person had. And it was actually very good. So, spoiler alert, because it's impossible to talk about this topic without giving away a bunch of the movie. Now, if you haven't seen Endgame by now, or any of the Avengers films and the ones leading up to Endgame, I kind of feel like you never will because they've been out for years now. But you never know. Somebody might have had a very busy life and they're just now getting around to Endgame. And I don't want to spoil that for you because it was a very good movie for me, right? Because especially because of all the build up from the prior movies. So if you haven't seen it, you don't want to get spoiled, stop the video now because that's your only spoiler alert because it's impossible not to spoil stuff if we want to have this conversation. So let's get into it. So there's two different questions, and they're very complex. And the first one was Thanos right? Now, this is kind of a mealy-mouthed answer because, yes, he was right, but I also don't agree with his method, right? So he was right in the sense of there's too much pollution. There's overuse of our resources, of our environment. We don't nurture and take care of the earth. There's a lot of things that we need to do, should do, must do to make sure that the earth is here in the next couple of generations. And not just here, but also here in a manner that the next generations can use, right? We need to recycle more. We need to reduce our footprint in our destruction on the planet. There's a lot of things that we need to do. We can reuse things more. We're very wasteful as a people. So in that sense, I do agree that there is not enough resources for the population that we have. It's not necessarily because we have too many people, but because of the way that we use our resources. So in that sense, Thanos was right. And Thanos was thinking, I get the Infinity Stones, I snap my fingers, and I annihilate half of the living things in the entire universe. Half the birds, half the bees, half the deer, half the humans, half of all living creatures disintegrated. So the other half that live can survive and thrive off the resources that are there, right? So then we don't have things like pollution and we don't have things like property and things like that. So in that retrospect, I don't agree with him, and I think he was wrong. Now, I do think there is overpopulation on a lot of things, and not just humans, like hogs, wild hogs overpopulate and destroy things. It's all across the board, but I don't think that's the solution. So the next question is and was Thanos a villain? Is Thanos a villain? Since he decided that he was going to, his means were not malicious, is what they're saying. Like he wants there to be enough for everybody. Absolutely, Thanos is a villain. And I'm going to explain to you why. So, to do this, I have to go back, right, to the first, not the first, but the Marvel movie called X-Men. Now, a lot of people seen it, a lot of people haven't, because it's a very old movie. It came out when I was a kid, right? And I'm in, like at the end of the day, so that was years ago, right? And I'm talking about decades ago. So I know a lot of people may not have seen it. So to give a brief synopsis of the storyline, Magneto wanted to turn all of the leaders that were visiting Ellis Island into mutants. He figured if he turns them into mutants, they would stop hunting mutants. They would see us as one of them. They wouldn't see them as a target, right? As a disease, as something that needs, because they would then be mutants themselves, right? So he had a machine which was going to do that. It was going to turn everybody into Ellis Island into a mutant. He had used the machine, but the machine drained him drastically. And for him to turn an entire island, the entire Ellis Island, into mutants, it would kill him, right? So Magneto devised a plan. What he would do is kidnap Rogue. Rogue's power is she can absorb other people's powers, right? So with that being said, he was going to transfer his power to Rogue unwillingly by touching her, and then put her in the machine and have her create them, and thus killing Rogue, but then turning the people on Ellis Islands into mutants, right? And thus he thinking, fulfilling his plan of all the world leaders becoming mutants. So now that they stay away from him. So his plan was flawed for two reasons. One, they revealed to him, hey, just so you know, all the people that you've used, that you've turned into mutants, they die. So it does turn them into mutants, and then it kills them. So that's the first thing. And he didn't listen, right? He was like, no, you're lying. Are you sure you saw what you think you saw? So he didn't believe them. The second reason that Magneto was a villain is because he wasn't in the machine himself. He wasn't willing to sacrifice himself for the plan that he was going through. Oh, he was believed in his plan, and he thought it was an effective plan, and he thought it would save. But if he was so righteous, and Logan told him this, he said, you're full of S, right? You're full of BS. And if you were so righteous, you would be in that machine yourself. And he didn't say anything to Logan. He just floated off like he didn't have no comeback because he was wrong. He's wrong. So that goes back to my point about Thanos. The reason Thanos is a villain is because when he wiped out all of life form after he snapped his fingers, why was Thanos still alive? So you mean to tell me you're willing to sacrifice half of all other life forms so that the other life forms can live? The only reason you're doing this is because there's not enough resources, there's too much pollution, you want the other side to thrive so there's no more poverty. You're doing all this for righteousness, but you don't take your own life first. That's a villain, ladies and gentlemen. So then the conversation, right? Because this is a conversation I'm having with a friend. They said, okay, you're right, Will. You're right, okay. But what if when you use the Infinity Stones, you can't use it that way? What if when you can't kill yourself with the Infinity Stones, or you can't create something that will kill you? I said, okay, you got a point. Maybe he can only use the Infinity Stones to life out half of life forms if he still stays alive to hold it. Okay. Then I told him this. Then why didn't he use the Infinity Stones to wipe out all of life form except for one person extra, and then he take his life and that person could live? See, there's no justification for not practicing what you preach when it comes to principles, characteristics. You see what I'm saying? This is why he's a villain. Because if he wasn't a villain, there's no reason for Thanos to still be walking around after he snapped his fingers. These are the same principles that we use on our leaders. These are the same principles that we lose on our people in charge and the people that run our society. When they tell us that something is wrong and then we catch them doing it. How did you feel when you heard smoking is bad for you? Smoking can cause cancer. Smoking will ultimately kill you. And then you caught your parent having a cigarette. How did you feel when you would learn, well, drinking will damage your liver, drinking will give you cancer, drinking can give you high blood pressure and even diabetes, and then you see your father having a stiff drink afterward? It's very hypocritical. So, yes, in my opinion, my humble opinion, I should say, Thanos is a villain. There's no reason for Thanos to execute a plan like that and then, still be walking around like, and if you think about it even deeper than that, think about it like this. If Thanos would have done it the way I'm saying, snapped his fingers, took half of all the population except for one, right? And then took his life after that so that one person can live, then how would the Avengers would still be looking for him? Because they'd be like, well, Thanos is out there somewhere. We got to find him. They wouldn't know that he took his life, right? That, not only that, but also think of it like this. Okay, so he killed half of all life forms. So that means you did it randomly, right? So then that means if I'm a betting man, then you probably took the life of somebody who was in a plane, who was driving a car, somebody who was doing something that as soon as you made them snap and disappear, they took another life. So you really didn't take half of life forms, did you? You took more than half of life forms because you did it. How did you say it? Undiscriminatory, right? You just randomly did it. And look. You can slice that bread however you want to, but when it comes down to it, your plan has flaws in it. You're just trying to, and that's a thing, right? Is the people that see things in black and white all the time. This is this, and this is this. There's a lot of things that should be black and white. You know, up is up, down is down. I get it. But there are a million gray areas out there in the world. So because there are a million gray areas, you can't just have this blanket statement that says, if you do this, you're bad, right? So it would be like saying, okay, if you fight, you're a bad person. Like if you have physical harm to somebody, you're a bad person. Okay, but what if that person is doing physical harm to you? See, there's extenuating circumstances to everything. So that's why a blanket statement like I'm just going to randomly and blanketly wipe out half a population, that makes you a villain. That makes you someone who you just have this thought in your, and really at the end of the day, if you think about Thanos, he's coming from trauma. He's coming from a trauma situation where his planet didn't have enough resources and so forth and so on. So he developed this thought in his mind that the reason that all this happened, the reason that things are this way is because there's not enough resources. So the way that we do it is we get rid of half the people, and to make it fair, we're just going to do it randomly. So, but I've already gone on a tangent long enough on this video, but I wanted to answer that question, share my thoughts on that, and let you guys share your thoughts on it as well. Feel free to hit up the comments. Feel free to jump in my inbox. Feel free to, make a reply to this video and tag me in it. But that's not my thoughts, on Thanos and on, his plan and whether or not he's a villain and how I feel about, all of that. But all right, guys, I need you to take care of yourselves. Please be kind to one another. Keep me in your prayers. I'll forever keep you in mind. Endure, believe, rise.